everybody. Welcome to the Glen Kuiper Show, All Giants. I am obviously Glen Kuiper, and welcome to another edition of the show. This is a post-game edition, so it's the first time we're doing that. Unfortunately, we picked a really lousy game to do a post-game edition of the show, but that's all right. We're still going to have a good time covering it, and so no good, though. No good in Chicago. So we're going to get to that. But let me give you a little rundown of the show so you know what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the game, talk about the Giants side of it, talk about the Cubs side of it. The Airs, obviously, were a big part of it. But we'll cover the game and inside and out on that. Three guys that we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about Luis Matos. We're going to talk about the Cubs' Kyle Tucker, who's going to get paid this offseason. He's going to get paid big time. And we're going to talk about Kyle Harrison, who is back in the big leagues for the Giants. Great story there. And so we got a lot to talk about with the Kyle Harrison situation. And then, as I promised you on my first show, what I like to do is I like to give everybody a little shot about the minor leagues and give some people, some guys in the Giants minor league system that are having good seasons. Maybe some guys to follow, maybe some guys that we'll see in the big leagues in a couple of years. Who knows? But I know in the first show we talked about the guys who are close to the major leagues, the guys in AAA and the depth at the pitching depth that's down there. Tonight we'll drop down a little bit to the single A teams and the double A team, and look at some guys who are having good years and some guys who are not that far from the big leagues. Just a question of whether they're ready or not. But anyway, so we'll hit the minor leagues as we always do tonight as well. So, but we'll do that a little bit later on in the show. We're going to kick things off though with we'll do our best to recap this game, or I'll do my best to recap this game. It was a 9-2 final. I think it was the worst game of the year. I know the Giants have had a couple lopsided losses, not a lot of lopsided losses, but I think this was the worst game of the year. It was obviously the worst defensive performance of the year. And I think the inning where everything fell apart, which was the bottom of the sixth, I think that was the worst half inning of the year for the Giants. Gosh, I was concerned that inning was just, quite frankly, not going to end. So I'm going to put this in the worst game of the year category. Let's start with Giants pitching. Roop, I thought Roop looked pretty good. I really did. 5 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs. Didn't walk anybody and had 4 strikeouts. That was Roop's line. And, if there's not an error with 2 outs in the 4th inning, that unfortunately led to 2 unearned runs. That error forced Roop to throw, I think John Miller said 13 more pitches. So I think if that would have been if that error doesn't happen, he gets through that inning 3 up, 3 down, he probably goes 6 innings. But all in all, I think Landon Roop pitched pretty well tonight. Put it this way, Landon Roop was not the issue. I think we know that. So we'll give a thumbs up to Roop, who looked pretty good. Birdsong did not look good. Obviously, a couple errors behind Birdsong as well, but his stuff was not sharp. I mean, his fastball was 95. He's got the good breaking ball and the good changeup. Neither looked sharp tonight. He hung a breaking ball to the first guy he faced, Kelly, who homered. So, we've seen Birdsong be terrific all year. Just was not sharp tonight coming out of the bullpen. And then Spencer Bivens was able to wrap it up. Bivens got 2 2/3 innings in, and at that point, the game's over. But that does, lighten the load on the bullpen. So you really, in a bad game where the other team scores 9 runs, you really only had to use 2 relievers. So if you're looking for bright spots, that certainly could be one of them. Offensively, just not a lot going. I kept score. I didn't think it was a great night at all offensively. Matos had the 2-run homer. That was nice to see. Got a changeup that Boyd hung, and he hit it out. Chapman had a couple of hits. But outside of that, there just really wasn't much going on. Not anything late, really. The 2-run homer by Matos was in the 4th inning. 10 more strikeouts, 9 swinging, 1 looking. So that continues to be an issue. But the thing that maybe is going a little bit uncovered here, but I think it's starting to be a thing, is Matthew Boyd, lefty starter for the Cubs. He was good, but the Giants now in games started by a left-hander are 2-9, which is a big surprise because if you remember in spring training, we all talked about how the lineup was going to be somewhat right-handed heavy, and even the bench is right-handed heavy. So, the concern is, do they need another left-handed hitter somewhere? But if you have a right-handed heavy hitting lineup, you think that should be a good thing against a left-handed pitching, left-handed starters. And it's been the exact opposite, which I didn't expect. I don't think anybody expected that, really. So that's a thing that I think we need to start looking at is what they're doing against left-handed pitching, because it should be better with all the good right-handed bats that they have in there. But like I said, 2-9 now in games started by a left-handed pitcher. So that's something to certainly look at as we move forward. And with that in mind, I was thinking Jenner Encarnacion is going to be back in, hopefully 2.5 weeks. It sounded like he may be going on a rehab assignment maybe this weekend, which would be great to get that big right-handed bat in there. But we don't know for sure if that would be the total answer. Encarnacion showed enough last year to have a roster spot this year. I think he could help against in this left-handed pitching thing that the Giants are dealing with, and not having a lot of success against lefties. But again, that's a couple of weeks down the road at least, probably more closer to 3 weeks for Encarnacion to get back. But that could be a thing that could help that situation. But it may need more than that if it doesn't change soon. So the left-handed starter thing, something to watch for. Defensively, of course, it was just a bad night. I mean, what can you do? Bob Melvin in the post-game press conference, it was just a bad night. Matt Chapman has 2 errors. Adames has 2 errors, leads to 5 unearned runs. That's not going to happen again this year. But it happened tonight. And as I looked at these errors, and follow me on this, they had 5 unearned runs. Giants gave up 5 unearned runs in. I really thought that the thing that forced the Giants' errors, at least the 2 that were part of the runs being scored by the Cubs, were because of the Cubs' speed. The ball that Chapman missed, the little dribbler off the bat of Pete Crow Armstrong, it was hit at 27 miles an hour. 27 miles. If you want exit velocity, 27 miles per hour. And it had a little spin on it. It was just a ball right there for Chapman. He was playing in on the grass because of the speed of Crow, who's super fast, and he gets out of the box. But I think that his speed affected Chapman maybe just a little bit. I thought maybe Chappie looked up a little bit to see where the runner was, but then on the replay, when the ball just had a little spin to it, and he just missed it. But the speed was a factor in Chapman misplaying what was about as easy of a ball as he's going to get. But unfortunately, the next guy got a hit, and the next guy got a hit, and the next guy got a hit, and it ended up being 2 unearned runs. So I put that in the category of that speed by Armstrong caused the misplay by Chapman that led to 2 unearned runs. Now, let's move ahead to the 6th inning, okay? Again, think about the speed involved, and it was the same guy. It was Crow Armstrong. Kelly leads off with a home run. Armstrong then gets a base hit. He's on first base, okay? Nico Horner hits a ground ball to short. Adames has to move a little bit to his right, but he fields it clean. But he rushes his throw to second base and throws it down the right field line. Why is he rushing his throw? Because Peter Crow Armstrong is the runner at first base, and he is making it what was going to be a very, very close play at second base. So that Armstrong speed, again, forced a Giant defender, in this case Adames, to make a mistake. He rushed, he threw it down the right field line, and then you got all kinds of action, right? But if that play is made, you have 1 out and a runner on first and 1 run in. The next hitter is Dansby Swanson, who hits a ground ball to Chapman, but Chapman's playing in. gets a tough hop, misplays it. If he's playing a normal spot, could be a ground ball to him, could be a double play. Now, we don't know that would have happened, but the point is in my opinion, the 5 unearned runs that were charged to the Giants that the Cubs scored on, those 5 were all forced by the Cubs' speed and were all forced by the speed of Crow Armstrong. If you think back of those plays, I don't think there's any question about it. And that's something that really stood out to me because this Cubs team is pretty good. And that's like an intangible that they have that it shows up in different ways. It's not just being able to hit the long ball. So, so that was something that jumped out at me. So that's kind of my view of the game. What I'd like to do for everybody who's out there watching is I want to hear how you feel about the game, as bad as it was, or some of the things that I'm breaking down. How do you guys feel about it? So jump in the chat room, and send a comment out, or send it to, you can email it to me. My email is glenkuiperbaseball@gmail.com. I like to talk to you guys, and I like to see how you feel about the game, and I like to see how you feel about what I'm saying in my breakdown of the game. See if you agree. You may not. You may disagree. So please, anything that's if you got something to say about the game, put it in the chat room as you're watching, and Ryan, my producer, and I we'll get to it, and we'll certainly make a comment on it. So, wait, we have one question for me. All right, it's from Cole. I'm excited to see Harrison back. Doesn't it seem odd to have 2 young starters in the bullpen? Yeah, we're going to get to Kyle Harrison, Cole, and we're going to have a nice discussion on that. We'll do that in a little bit because. Yeah, it's an interesting move, but I think that there's some things that we're going to cover there on that. So, but we'll get to that in certainly a little bit. But I wanted to finish the game thought on this Cubs offense. Cubs are off to a great start. It looks like they could be for real, right? But they are killing it offensively. They lead the major league in runs scored. They're 3rd in home runs. They have the best batting average. So they're doing a lot of things right. And I looked at their final scores this year, and 8 times they have scored 10 or more runs this year. 8 times already. They scored 18 runs against the A's. They scored 16 runs against the Dodgers. They scored 11 runs against the Dodgers. So listen, they're a really good offensive team, and I think we saw it tonight because they can do a lot of things. A lot of team speed. They put the ball in play. Put the ball in play. You saw it tonight. What can happen if you have speed and you put the ball in play? You force the defense, even a good defensive team like the Giants, to make mistakes. It's a thing with the Cubs, and they have it. They have a lot of good athletes, good speed. And tonight, how many times? They struck out 5 times. That's it. The Giants struck out 10. So a couple of little intangibles that this Cubs offense does. And then on top of that, they have excellent power, so I think they're for real. Certainly their offense is for real. We saw it tonight. We saw the different ways that they can beat you. So that's the breakdown of the Cubs a little bit. Getting back to the Giants, we said we wanted to check in on Luis Matos. Matos is getting a chance to play a little bit more lately. Tonight, 2-run homer. Looks a little bit more comfortable. But he was in the lineup on Thursday. He was in the lineup on Saturday. He was in the lineup on Sunday. And he was in the lineup tonight. So I think we'd all like to see Matos maybe play a little bit more. I'm not saying he should replace one of the outfielders because you have Yaz and Ramos and Jung-Hoo Lee. But we've talked a lot about let's try to figure out how to get Matos some more at bats, and it could be that maybe Bob Melvin is trying to do that because again in the lineup for the last 5 games, so that's that he's getting an opportunity and he's looked pretty good. His at bats have been better. He had good at bats this weekend. Hit the home run tonight. I think he also struck out a couple times. Yeah, he was 1 for 4, but like I said, there wasn't a lot going on offensively, but. I think the Matos thing It's going to be interesting, though. We're going to find out. He's playing a lot against left-handers, which is sort of the role that he was, going to be in as they started the season. But now, so he plays tonight, but now a right-handed starter tomorrow night for the Cubs, a right-handed starter on Wednesday for the Cubs, and then the Giants will go to Minnesota. Minnesota has an all right-handed rotation. So it's going to be all right-handers in Minnesota. And then Arizona comes to Oracle Park for a 3-game series. And Arizona has 4 right-handers and 1 left-hander in their rotation. So the point is starting tomorrow, the Giants are going to see a whole bunch of right-handed starters again. And they had that situation early in the year, was a bunch of righties in a row. Well, they're going to get it again. So I think we got to sit back and see how Bob can get Matos in the lineup when there's a right-handed pitcher. So it's not an easy job for the manager, but I think Bob is seeing what we're seeing, maybe some better swings from Matos. And if we see some better swings, then I think with an offense that it hasn't always clicked, I think you got to get the guy in there a little bit more. So that's something to keep an eye on in this next week, or maybe the rest of this series and the first 2 series after this. How does Bob find a spot for Matos? Maybe not every day. We're not talking about that, but a little bit more than maybe he has. So, got some comments coming in. Bailey had quite a disappointing game. He should have tried to throw to second. Yeah, it did. Something was up there on that play. It looked like Bailey looked in the dugout and said, I couldn't get a throw off, or he said something to the dugout. I don't know exactly what it was. But again, there's that Cubs speed, right? And it was part of that inning as well. Cole says, I got to give credit to Bomel today because he saved our leverage relievers for tomorrow after blowout today, and a good job for Bivens today. Yeah, we mentioned that. And that's you have to work the bullpen even in a blowout. It's just part of being a manager. And that's why you have a guy like Bivens. He may not be a high leverage guy, but it's games like today that in this strange way can be very, very important. And you know what? The Giants bullpen is well rested. The starters have gone a little bit longer lately. Giants have an off day every Thursday in the month of May. So they got enough off days. And I think the bullpen is fine. Bullpen's going to be well rested. And, they got some long guys down there, and Harrison's down there now. So I don't think that's an issue. So I think they're fine in that situation. So, but anyways, that's the Luis Matos stuff. We'll just see how the lineup looks from day to day. And if he keeps swinging it well, Bob will find spots to get him in there. And we're going to get to Kyle Harrison in a minute, but before we do that, I wanted to talk about Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker, right fielder for the Chicago Cubs. You may be thinking, well, yeah, he's really good. He's had a great year. He didn't do anything tonight. He was 0 for 4 with a walk. Doesn't matter what he did tonight. Kyle Tucker is a terrific player. He got 9 homers, 30 RBIs, off to a great start. His first year in Chicago, came over in a big trade. Then there were some rumors that the Giants were interested in Kyle Tucker, and I would imagine they were. Everybody was interested. The Astros made him available, and he's one of the best young players in all of baseball. So I think there was a ton of teams that were interested in him. So I'm sure the Giants checked in on him, but the Cubs were the team that were able to pull it off and get a terrific young player. So where I'm going with this is he's a free agent at the end of this year. So Juan Soto, we all know Juan Soto, terrific player. His contract that he signed with the Mets was a 15-year, $765 million deal, okay? That's a big contract. So where does Tucker fit in behind Soto as far as how good is he? Well, these are just basic numbers, right? Tucker's 28 years old. He's got 134 career home runs. It's his sixth year in the big leagues. Soto, 206 career home runs. Soto has a better OPS, 948 to 876. Not a huge difference, but, a difference. Slugging percentage is about the same, very close, actually. And these are career numbers. The difference, OPS, really goes to the on-base percentage, where Soto walks much more than Tucker. So I'm not here saying that Tucker is as good as Juan Soto. What I'm saying is he's not that far behind. And where will his contract land? Okay. 28 years old. Soto will be 27 in October. So there's a year's difference. Tucker's going to get paid. But how much do you think he's going to get paid? Is he $400 million? Is that ridiculous? Is he more than that? Is he less than that? Is he 10 years? Is he 12 years? Soto got 15 years. How much better of a player is Juan Soto than Kyle Tucker? And Kyle Tucker is a very good outfielder. Juan Soto, he's a decent outfielder. How much of a difference is there? It's a question I want you guys to think about. And then, would the Giants spend money like that? Who knows? That's the crazy question that we always like to do. We like to throw the Giants' money around. But Tucker's going to be a free agent unless the Cubs don't let him get out of there. But he's got one shot to be a free agent and get a bunch of teams bidding on him. We'll see if he does it. But the Cubs will be part of it too. But I just thought it was interesting knowing how good, and I saw Kyle Tucker in the American League come up with the Astros, and he was sensational. And we know Juan Soto's great, and Juan Soto's a star. The game is played differently with Juan Soto. He's a little more flashy, where Tucker's a little more low-key, just kind of grinds through it. But statistically, and what they bring to the field and what they bring to their lineup, is it a huge difference? Is it a $250, $300 million a year difference? I don't know. I'm a fan of both guys. But my point is I don't think Tucker is that far behind Juan Soto. But more people know about Juan Soto. Played a year in New York with the Yankees. Now he's with the Mets. Plays with that flair, which is fun. I like that. I like the way Soto plays. But how much financially is there going to be difference between what Tucker gets at the end of this year and what Soto got at the end of last year? It's a good baseball question. It's going to be there all summer. And maybe we'll revisit it this winter when Kyle Tucker gets a free agent contract from somebody. But it's one of those good baseball questions that will be around, and we'll be able to revisit it. So let's see. Cole is checking in again. He said Vlad was 14 years, $500 million. That's a good call, Cole. And that was the recent extension that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signed, with the Blue Jays. And again, that was an extension. So Toronto didn't let him get to free agency. You let a guy get to free agency, well, then it's a bidding war. Boom, boom, boom. Let's keep going up. Unless the guy really wants to stay there and he can get a deal like that, which obviously Vlad did. More power to him, and really more power to that team for not allowing the guy to get to the free agent market. And that could very easily happen with Tucker with Chicago. That would not surprise me. Cubs got plenty of money, and they know how good he is. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with Kyle Tucker. But certainly something fun to think about from a baseball standpoint. And, there's so many baseball stories out there. So many other things going on besides Giants baseball. But that is where our emphasis is always going to be. You guys know that. So that gets us to the Kyle Harrison situation. He's back in the big leagues, which is great. We're excited about that. I've known Kyle for a very long time. I know his family. He's a great kid. In fact, Kyle has a younger brother by the name of Bear Harrison, who's a terrific college player at Texas A&M. He's a sophomore catcher, big power hitter. So maybe we'll be talking about him sometime soon too. But so Kyle is back. He did what the Giants told him to do. Go down to AAA, get stretched out, get yourself ready to pitch in the big leagues. And if you're having success, we'll get you back up here. It was a weird spring training for Kyle. I was down there for 3 weeks, and he was still recovering a little bit with the shoulder, which was he had kind of a bum shoulder last year. Velocity went down. He got sick early in spring training, lost a bunch of weight. So right from the beginning, he was behind. He was behind Roop. He was behind Birdsong in kind of that fight for the 5th spot. And you could tell early on that this battle for the 5th spot probably wasn't going to end well for Kyle, because his pitch count was not up, and he got knocked around a little bit in spring training. But he did, he got himself back, and he's pitching well. The velocity is up, which is great. He's pitching at 95. Got it ramped up to 97, but I don't care about the ramp up. I want to know, what is he pitching at? And he's pitching at 94, 95 miles an hour, maybe even 96 in there, where, last year he was 92, 93, and the velocity kind of went down. So anyways, that's the good news for Kyle Harrison. He will get used out of the bullpen initially. We'll see if that changes. Don't know. But I think what the Giants are doing now with Buster and the new guys running the show is, I think if somebody's having success and there's an opportunity, they want to reward that person for having their success. I think that's why Roop and Birdsong both made the roster coming out of spring training, because they both were terrific in spring training. Okay, let's figure out a way to use them both. And they did that. And Harrison had success. And now they feel like, hey, he can probably help us in the bullpen. Unfortunately, Lou Trevino was expendable, and they can put Harrison in the bullpen. So they made it work because they feel like they're going to have a better 26-man roster and pitching staff with Harrison in the big leagues. Now, let's figure out a way to use him, right? But I think that's the way the Giants front office wants to operate. They want to reward people for playing well, for doing well, and doing what they asked that player to do. And that's what has happened with Kyle. Let's get you straightened out. Let's get your mechanics right. Let's get that velocity back to where it was. Let's try to throw more strikes. And obviously they felt like Kyle did that, and now he's here, and how he's used, we're going to find that out. But it's not, and I don't know that anybody would admit this, but it's not out of the question too to say, hey, Landon Roop, you're a 5th starter, but we need to see progress from you as well. We need to see you become a little bit better. And he was pretty good tonight. But we got Kyle Harrison here. We got Hayden Birdsong here. And it's a little unconventional, but that doesn't mean it can't work for now. But it also could be just a small message to Landon Roop to say, hey, let's go. Let's go. You're a 5th starter. You got to hold on to that. Nobody's going to admit that, but I don't think that is completely out of the question that, having Harrison here, it may push Roop a little bit, and competition is good for everybody. So that's something to think about when it comes to Kyle Harrison. And as far as Harrison goes as a pitcher, I don't think he's a finished product. I didn't think he was, he's still not a finished product. I'd like to see him, pound the zone a little bit more, throw more strikes. And I think he was doing that in AAA. Now he needs to do it at the big league level. I think he, at times with right-handed hitters, threw too many balls out of the strike zone. So pound the strike zone to right-handed hitters a little bit more, And I think the breaking ball needs to become more of a pitch for him that he can maybe get a swing and miss, or maybe he can bury it to right-handed hitters. Right now, it seems like it's a little bit of a get it over pitch, spin it in there for early strike, which is great. But I'd like to see Kyle have be able to throw that slider hard down and into right-handed hitters. I think that would help him. And at times, in a strange way, last year he didn't. He struggled against left-handed hitters, and I'm not sure if that's because maybe that real hard slider wasn't there. I don't know. I'm not a pitching coach. It's just what I've seen from Kyle. So there's room for growth with Harrison. He's only 23 years old. He signed out of high school. He was in the big leagues last year. He made 24 starts in the big leagues last year. So I think you got to hang with Kyle Harrison and know that there's growth there. Now you got to see if it will continue. And at this point, is his stuff going to work in the bullpen? I think it will. I think the stuff will. But you have to find out if the kid can adjust to the bullpen. And that's a major thing. That's not easy. That is not easy. He's always been a starter his whole career. Even, in high school, he's never come out of the bullpen like that. He's going to have to learn how to do that. And if he can, then he will help this team. And at some point, he'll probably get himself back in the rotation. But it's just people need to remember making that switch to the bullpen and figuring out how to be a reliever all of a sudden. That it's not easy. It's not easy because there's a little bit of a mental part of it too. And not everybody can make that adjustment. I think Kyle will, but it may take a little while. But right now he's going to come out of the bullpen, and who knows? Maybe he becomes a pretty good second left-hander with he and Miller. That would be the worst thing. That would not be the worst thing. So, we're pulling for Kyle Harrison, and we'll see if he can, we'll see if he has indeed made strides, and we'll see if he has the ability to make that adjustment to become a reliever for the time being. For the time being, knowing that, listen, having a lot of depth is a good thing, and he's going to help the big league team if he can give them depth, if they need him in the starting rotation. But at this point, if he can be good in the bullpen, it's going to keep him in the big leagues. So that's your update on Kyle Harrison. And again, we hope that he pulls it off, and we think that he will. So that's sort of the couple things that I wanted to touch on, and I want to finish with the minor league guys. I like to again check out who's doing good, who's not doing good. And then when we're done with that, I'll take a quick look at some of these questions and comments that you viewers have thrown out there. And I appreciate that. Keep doing it because I'll get to them all and spend some time on that as well. But last time we looked at the high eight or the AAA guys, I wanted to drop down a little bit. AA Richmond, they got Bryce Eldridge back. That's a big deal, obviously. He's back in the lineup. He's already played 10 games. He's got a home run. He's striking out a lot, which is something that we'll keep an eye on. But Eldridge is back in the lineup, and that's good. We'll see what happens if he stays there the whole year. We don't know. But it is a guy that all Giants fans will continue to check on to see how he's doing. But the fact is he's healthy and he's in the lineup. Couple guys in Richmond that are interesting. I know the Giants like them a lot. And they're names that you may want to start to get used to a little bit. One is a catcher by the name of Adrian Sugestay. He was in spring training. He's a young kid, only 22 years old. He's a right-handed hitter, but I know the Giants like him. He was in spring training for a while. He's very good defensively, still developing as a hitter. But he is one of the Giants' better prospects, and they don't have a lot of catching prospect depth necessarily, but he's one of them. Adrian Sugestay, his name is, and he's in AA Richmond. And so put him in your bookmark, and let's keep an eye on him and how he's doing down there. And Richmond has an infielder who I've liked I saw him in San Jose. His name is Diego Velasquez. He had a big year a couple years ago in San Jose. He was in spring training, so we saw him a little bit. He's a switch hitter. He's only 21 years old, middle infielder, plays second base, shortstop. Not a big power guy, but really good offensive numbers. Again, a switch hitter, which makes him attractive. He can play both sides of the bag, second or short. This year he's playing mostly second base, but he has played quite a bit of short in the years before that in the minor leagues. But interesting guy, Diego Velasquez. Again, good hitter, has an excellent approach at the plate, still only 21 years old. So a switch hitter, middle of the diamond guy who has had good numbers in all of his stops in the minor leagues, and he's off to a very good start in Double-A. So keep an eye on him. He could be a fast mover, and we could see him in Triple-A. Who knows? But again, that's a name, Diego Velasquez, to watch for. And then a couple of young outfielders, and we're going to A-ball now. But I know the Giants are really excited about these two guys. In High A Eugene, there's an outfielder by the name of Bo Davidson. He's a left-handed hitter. He's 22 years old. Kind of came out of nowhere last year, and then was terrific in San Jose. So he's starting in High A this year. He's off to a great start. This young man, again, left-handed hitter. He's got good power. He's got good plate discipline. He's got good speed. He plays center field. And he's off to he's hitting 354 with 4 home runs for Eugene. He's got a nice look to him, strong, but left-handed hitter, and he's an up-and-comer. And it kind of came out of nowhere, and that's what's kind of fun about guys like this. So keep an eye on Bo Davidson. And in San Jose, people in the Bay Area, you can shoot right down there and check out the San Jose Giants. But they have a young man by the name of Dakota Jordan, who was a pretty high draft pick last year. But an interesting story. He's only 21 years old, but he went to Mississippi State to play baseball and football. And if you see him, he's built like a football player. I mean, he is big and he is strong, but we're not talking about this massive human being. We're talking about a guy who went to college and as a football player was a wide receiver, but he's really strong. And he's off to a super start as well for San Jose. His early numbers, he's hitting 290 in 26 games. He's got 10 stolen bases. And in talking to the Giants about him, he's raw, but it's the upside of power and speed and playing center field that have them so excited. So again, it's just fun to look at some of these guys. You may not always hear a lot about them until they get to Triple-A, but I like to throw some names out there so that people can at least say, oh, you know what? Okay, Bo Davidson, Dakota Jordan. I'm going to keep an eye on those guys. And then you follow them. You follow them, and you hope that they keep coming up. It's hard to get to the big leagues, but just some fun names to remember, as the summer goes on. So that's sort of my little minor league recap that I do like to do for each and every show. So let's see if we got any other comments. Glenn, where Josiah Gonzalez is playing this year? I think that was the young man that they just signed with international money, gave him big money, if I remember correctly. And he's probably down in the Dominican Republic playing at the Giants place down there. Giants have a complex down there. And for the Latin players that they sign, their first couple years playing professionally, it's usually done down there at the complex down there, which from what I'm told is gorgeous. It's beautiful. So that sort of lets the young Latin players get accustomed to professional baseball, but you're also doing it, in your home country. And it's just a little bit easier for these kids because they are very young. They're 16, 17 years old. So I believe that is where he is. So Daniel says Bo Davidson has looked fantastic. He's not high on the prospect list because he was undrafted, I believe. Yeah, he was, but that's why he's becoming a great story, because he is making himself noticed. People are noticing him because of the numbers he's putting up. And I see highlights of him, and he's got a nice look as a player to him. Nice, sweet left-handed swing. See him hit home runs to left center and to center field. So again, it's fun. It's fun to see, how good these young guys are. Patrick Sheehan says, love seeing you on YouTube, Glenn. I for sure will be tuning in. I appreciate that. In fact, I appreciate all of the followers. So that's going to be our show for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Unfortunately, the game wasn't great. The Giants did not give us a lot to work with tonight. But I like to think, you know what? The game shouldn't matter. You still should put on a good show. And I certainly hope you guys liked it. Just some reminders. Follow me on X at Kuiper Baseball. You can follow me on Instagram at Glen Kuiper. My email, if you want to send me some questions, I'll certainly answer them. GlenKuiperBaseball@gmail.com. But last and certainly not least, you know the drill with the YouTube channel. Watch, listen, and hit subscribe, and jump aboard with me on my new adventure of the Glen Kuiper Show, All Giants. So hope you enjoyed it, everybody. We'll see you with our next show next week, but also keep an eye out for some cool videos that I got coming up.